I've done it. Without even really trying, I've found the most insane, out there, delusional hot take on the Palworld versus Pokemon controversy that's ensuing right now. Now, we all know that gaming YouTubers are spurging out left and right. They're trying to gaslight themselves into thinking Palworld is some huge success story and that like it was some big epic L for Nintendo and then Nintendo's out of pocket for suing them. But anybody who is reasonable, like myself, understands that what Nintendo is doing is completely warranted. However, there are a lot of people who are putting out absolutely insane hot takes in regard to this topic. And today, I want to show you one of them. From one of the biggest pedophiles I'm aware of on the gaming platform, known lolicon enthusiast, just anti-DEI, like just weirdo internet spurg, raging golden eagle. Someone I've talked about extensively over the past several days for a lot of reasons. I can't stand this guy. I can't stand his behavior, his ridiculous accent, his MGTOW mentality, right? I can't stand his coping and seething about women, right? I can't stand his takes on PC gaming and Nintendo and especially Pokemon. And with this clip, I think you will begin to understand why.
Something has to happen. Yeah, apparently like an hour ago, it got leaked that fucking Nintendo is just now getting around to suing Palworld.
It was not leaked. Nintendo released an official statement claiming that they had filed a formal lawsuit against Palworld on September 18th.
And I hope it goes to court. I really do. I hope this shit goes to court, and I hope that that Pocket Pair gets Squeenix involved, so the makers of Dragon Quest can sue Pokemon.
What? He's really doing this. He's really going to sit here and tell us, completely with a straight face, that Pokemon plagiarized Dragon Quest, right? That they're in any way remotely similar, that they have any kind of real similarities, that the art design is the same, that the mechanics are the same, that Pokemon plagiarized Dragon Quest to the extent that Palworld plagiarized Pokemon. This is, of course, ridiculous, right? Because we have a long-standing history of these franchises, right? No one's ever accused Pokemon of plagiarizing Dragon Quest, right? That's not really a thing. That was something entirely invented by Palworld shills to try and cope and seethe about Palworld for being called out for what it was, which is a plagiarized product.
Because Pokemon stole a lot of designs from Dragon Quest.
This retard is referring to this image. And anybody who has an IQ above like 75 can clearly see that these are not retextured, they're not repackaged, right? They're different artists with different takes on fantasy creatures, right? They have similar concepts, but calling them plagiarized is not only a stretch, it's completely false, right? It cannot be argued at all that they're in any way remotely similar. Compare that with Palworld and how these creatures are completely one-to-one knockoffs of specific Pokemon, and you totally see where the issue lies.
Sure would suck if Squeenix were to sue Nintendo now.
To understand why this statement is ridiculous, you really have to understand a little bit about RGE, right? You have to understand that he is a major advocate for anti-DEI policies. He hates what modern Square Enix is. He hates most Japanese media, right? He complains incessantly about how like the franchise, how the East has fallen because they no longer produce lolicon content for him and his degenerate buddies to jack off to on stream, right? He's always complaining about that, right? So the fact that he's coming out here, wanting Square Enix to go up against Nintendo is really telling about how these people, quote unquote, people, are actually the same, right? When you get right down to it, right? Both liberals, both wokies, and both anti-wokies, right? People on both sides of the political aisle will team up and go up against Nintendo, right? They will aggressively try and make them out to be the bad guy in every given situation, right? So they'll defend plagiarism with Palworld, and then they'll actively encourage the idea that other companies like Square Enix should file lawsuits against Nintendo for the same thing that they're complaining about Nintendo doing, right? These people hate Nintendo with a religious ferocity.
Oh God, this is gonna be good. Yeah, I think Nintendo may have remembered how Digimon whooped their ass years ago.
Things that never happened. Digimon was a viable competitor against Pokemon when they came out in the 90s. They both had competing TV shows, they both had video games. Pokemon became a worldwide phenomenon, and Digimon kind of fell off, right? Nobody who knew what they were talking about ever accused Digimon of being a plagiarized product of Pokemon. Why? Because Digimon had its own unique designs. It had its own unique mechanics, right? It had its own tone and style. It's everything that Palworld isn't, right? Digimon is the textbook case study on how you should be approaching the same general concept and idea, right? This really needs to be talked about more when it comes to the claims that people are throwing out there in regards to why Nintendo is filing a lawsuit against Palworld, right? Oh, they're just jealous of their success. Well, why aren't they going after other competitors then? Why didn't they go after Digimon? Why didn't they go after Yokai Watch? And don't tell me don't give me some nonsense theory that oh, they didn't have as much clout then. That's just a cope, right? The reality is that Nintendo doesn't make a habit of filing lawsuits against their competitors. It's just not something that happens for no good reason, right? The lawsuit is happening because Palworld genuinely ripped off Pokemon. There's nothing more to it than that.
So now they're oh wow, we can't let that happen again. Man, well, we're not going to put any time and effort into actually making a decent Pokemon game like we used to. Nah, let's just start suing people. Can Squeenix afford to sue Nintendo? Yes, they can, because despite losing everything on games, Squeenix makes money on manga. Remember, Squeenix is one of the biggest manga publishers in Japan. They have money. But that aside, I think that if Nintendo decides to go after Pocket Pair, I think Squeenix has a strong enough case against Nintendo.
So let me get this straight. This delusional lolicon is explaining to us that Square Enix is going to sue Nintendo for ripping off Dragon Quest in the 90s because they filed a lawsuit against an unrelated company. Why are we talking about Square Enix at all? Right? They don't have anything to do with Palworld. They weren't involved with the plagiarism, right? All you're doing is coping and seething, trying to gaslight people into thinking that Pokemon ripped off Dragon Quest when that didn't happen.
That they might be able to get a lawyer that'll do it for free, just for a cut of the winnings.
This guy is so neck deep in Clownsville that he seriously thinks a lawyer is going to take on Nintendo for free because it's such a guaranteed win for Pocket Pair and Square Enix. Like, oh, they could totally prove that Pocket Pair did nothing wrong, and they're gonna get all this money from Nintendo. No, they're not. Like, there is absolutely no winning in this scenario.
Lawsuit within a lawsuit would be so delicious. Yep. Or at the very least, I at least hope that this shit goes to Discovery or whatever the Japanese equivalent is, since I'm quite sure this is going to be in Japanese court. Then state what the charges are. No, I think they did actually. They did. They said that well, at a high level, they said that Palworld infringed on multiple Pokemon patents and seeks damages. If that's true, we really do need a rework of the patent system, because what fucking patent of Nintendo's was infringed on? Are they actually allowing companies to patent game mechanics? Dude, someone should patent shooting a gun in a video game. Dude, you're going to be the world's first trillionaire. Like, man, Call of Duty, Fortnite, everyone's going to have to give you money. Yeah, only we can make wolves. Yep, that's right. Yeah, they own animal patents. Yeah, I guess only Nintendo can make games with like wolves and turtles and shit in them.
What this has always been the big absolute like end all be all cope for Palworld shills is this idea that like Nintendo doesn't own animals. Like, yeah, but they're not reskins of animals. They're reskins of Pokemon, right? You can see which Pokemon they specifically ripped off. You know, Vulpix still has that like little diamond thing on its chest, right? It still has the same face shape, same general like thing. Like, I think it's even like a fire type, right? Same general concept, like exact same thing, right? It isn't like inspired by it. It's not like some deviation. It's not like based on like real Vulpixes because they don't exist. Like, it's based off of Vulpix, okay? Like, it is a Vulpix. You know, they just changed the tail. That's it. Like, really. That is what Palworld did, is that they took a bunch of assets and patented material from Pokemon and put it into their own game illicitly. And that is why they're getting sued.
And birds. Just get a patent on breathing air. Yeah, why not? I mean, if the patent system is going to be this fucking broken, let's take it all the way. Let's see how crazy we can get. Why the hell not? But this is just as fucking stupid as when Apple tried to say they had a patent on rounded corners on portable electronic devices. Like, yeah, go fuck yourselves. Like, that should have been laughed out of court immediately. Patent moving a character with a controller or keyboard. Yeah, patent using input devices in the context of a video game. Why not? Yeah, I think really like Nintendo's just fucking butthurt because like Palworld showed that there is a massive market on PC for Pokemon-like games.
Wow, PC owners are enthusiastic about low effort mobile tier slop. You know, straight up shovelware. It's almost like you guys have absolutely no standards whatsoever and will eat up anything as long as it's not on a console, right? This says more about the PC gaming community than it says about Nintendo or Pokemon.
Yet for the longest time, Nintendo has a fucking entire redwood tree up their ass.
Yeah, you want Pokemon, you get a Nintendo console. You can't have Pokemon unless you get a Nintendo console.
You gotta love it when PC gamers go full mask off and showcase the real reason why they're so salty at Nintendo all the time, because they don't get the best games. They'll never get the Marios, they'll never get the Zeldas, they'll never get Pokemon, right? And they'll do multi-hour long live streams every day complaining about these IPs, even though they allegedly don't care about them at all.
And then someone just said, okay, fine, we'll make our own Pokemon with blackjack and hookers and slavery. And they sold more than fucking Nintendo's Pokemon did.
No, it did not. I've talked about this numerous times, but Palworld sold at a measly $30 compared to Pokemon selling twice that much, right? Nintendo had 3 major releases over the past couple of years, being Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, Pokemon Legends Arceus, and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And all of them did just as well or better than Palworld, right? Palworld was not this giga hit that its fanboys make it out to be. It is not possible for Palworld to come out and sell more than Pokemon. It is too established of a brand. It's too iconic. Palworld was never, ever going to compete with Nintendo long term. And that is very evident if you look at the player counts on Steam now, right? The game isn't even like a year old yet. And yet, like, the player count is in like what? The 10,000s, right? It's just completely dropped off the face of the earth, right? It had a brief 2-week window of relevancy, and then it just completely fell off. Meanwhile, people like me are still playing Pokemon Legends Arceus. You know, we're still playing Scarlet and Violet. You know, we're still talking about all these great Pokemon games, and we're excited about the future of the brand, right? Palworld, to be put perfectly honest with you, is probably never going to leave early access, right? That alone demonstrates just how big of a failure Palworld actually was, especially if you take into account the fact that they are getting sued by Nintendo, and all the money they made on this is just going to go away to legal fees and being paid out to Nintendo for damages, right? It is going to happen. Palworld completely failed because it was a plagiarized derivative product.
Yeah, now imagine how much money Nintendo would make if they started focusing on PC.
They make money off of consoles, genius. They make money off of games sold on their consoles, genius. That includes third-party developers. There is absolutely no benefit ever for Nintendo to go third-party and support PC. This is completely ridiculous and really needs to be called out more as just some delusional, out of touch, like spawn from a communist country, just dipshit.
See, they don't need to, I guess, because no, Nintendo makes more than enough money keeping things exclusive to their console. But Nintendo is still a public company, you know. Nintendo's got investors. Wouldn't it be funny if everyone started convincing Nintendo's investors of all the money they could be making if they just released their games on PC?
Oh, yeah, like those guys tried to do with the mobile games 10 years ago. Oh, what happened with that? Oh, Nintendo doesn't produce mobile games anymore. And nobody brings it up because they understood it was a bad idea and people have moved on from the mobile thing, right? Nobody brings up PC because nobody cares about PC. It is not a viable market for Nintendo to be a part of. He continues spurging about this for quite a long while, right? It's like a 4-hour long stream. I could go through it and splice in all the instances of complaining about Nintendo and Palworld, but I think you get the general idea. Okay, like this is just the pinnacle of what I've seen of cope coming from like the Pal Shills, right? Because they don't care about the game, they don't care about the Pokemon IP, they don't care about Nintendo. All they want to do is present this narrative where they're presenting Nintendo as the bad guy, even though it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? And that's the big thing I want people to take away from this. Like, as we go into this lawsuit, right, we're seeing a lot of people do everything they possibly can to try and make Nintendo's lawsuit out to be completely unwarranted, right? Nobody wants to admit about acknowledge the plagiarized designs. Nobody wants to acknowledge like all the plagiarism from games like Pokemon Legends Arceus, right? They don't want to talk about the copycat mechanics. They want to do this thing where like they pretend everything Pokemon does is genericized now, and it's just okay for Palworld to just copy and paste it. And because like, oh, Palworld has guns, so it's different. Like, that's not how this works, bro. Like, and I do think the reason Nintendo is emphasizing the patent violations is specifically to emphasize that the plagiarism goes way deeper than just similar looking characters in a different genre, right? They are going to be super in depth about this stuff, right? It's going to be insane what they talk about. And I've been saying this for a long time, but I don't think people are prepared for how badly Palworld is going to get wrecked, right? All anybody can do is just flail around and try to say that like Palworld's better than Pokemon, except I know you don't play Pokemon. Most of you don't even play on Nintendo consoles. So like why exactly would I take your narrative that Palworld did what Nintendo don't seriously, right? Like again, this applies to like all sorts of different IPs, you know, Xenoblade, Fire Emblem, Zelda, Mario, right? Like the list goes on, but like this is an example of Pokemon being aggressively attacked to try and push a narrative, right? And again, like this is the thing you'll notice with people like Mudahar and people like Angry Joe, Verlicify, all of these YouTube channels like Shilling for Palworld, like they have an agenda, right? They're trying to shill their own platforms, their own brands, their ideas. Like they're trying to grift off of this controversy, which is why they are so vehemently pro Palworld and anti Nintendo without bothering to look at the facts or really thinking critically about the situation at all, right? It's so bad right now that, you know, after a full day, I do believe that I'm the only person coming out and speaking out about Palworld. You know, speaking out about how manipulative Pocket Pair has been in regards to their language to their fans. You know, I'm the only one who's been saying for months that like Nintendo would sue Palworld during that period of time where everybody was crying about like it's not gonna happen, Palworld G of the Year, like Game of the Year, like this is the greatest thing ever. Like no, we are going to see the Palworld narrative fall apart, right? There will be no animated TV shows, there will be no merchandise, there will be no game. Okay, the game is gonna get straight up removed from from all storefronts at the rate it's going, right? And people are going to cry about it. But because the Palworld fad has died, it basically just amounts to like a very vocal minority of people online who obsessively hate Nintendo. Like maybe a couple of 100,000 people, as opposed to like, you know, normal people who don't care or pay attention about this at all. And you know, once the hammer is brought down on Pocket Pair, right, these people are going to have to move on to a new grift, right? It's going to be a lot like what happened with Yuzu, right, where we spent years being told that like Nintendo had no case against them, that emulation was completely legal, that Yuzu was doing nothing wrong. One filing later, 2 days after the initial filing, Yuzu settled, right? They had to stop what they were doing, right? Because what they were doing was illegal. And the same can be said for Palworld, right? It is the same cope, a lot of the same rhetoric, a lot of the same people involved. You know, Mudahar in particular is a person of interest that I've noticed in both. But this really needs to be said more, is that these people will aggressively hate Nintendo no matter what. And it needs to be understood among the audience that as a result of that mindset, no one should listen to them, take them seriously, or respect them at all. I'm Harmon Smith. Thank you for tuning in.